That means we don't need to get a motivational speaker. We really have to just reflect on what we've been doing best.
Yeah.
And take advantage of it and put it in what we are doing. You've talked about the example of the restaurant, and I was thinking, yes, let's say we are working in a restaurant, but I know personally I cannot stop working.
Yeah.
And I'm imagining somebody who is working and they have the ability, not that they are being forced to, but you can't just stop working.
Yeah.
But because you've joined Kampala, maybe you've joined a company. I'm talking about my example. I joined this company. I won't mention the name.
Yeah.
But because it's in a system that all government workers can leave at any time.
Yeah.
I've found it a culture.
Yeah.
And really, this is speaking to me.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot join because it's what I'm found as what people are calling normal, and I go by that. I have to go by what God has put in me.
Yeah.
What I've grown up, what I've grown up doing, what I've grown up, and knowing that this is what it's supposed to be. That's really important. Maybe
before we leave that, I want to ask you something. When you're applying for a job, what are the things they look at? Your credentials and your experience. What you're doing now, right now, is gathering experience for your best position. You're today in a work position where it looks okay to cheat your employer, who is government, on a daily. But believe me, you're gathering that experience. It will be tricky when you come to where our employers are time cautious. They are KPI driven. They need results. So you can use that position to grow the right experience, the right training for when the time will come for you to work this side. Okay? But if you come with that attitude in this side where we are that strict, we'll throw you out. Like in a few, it is very obvious. They'll be like, he can't sit in, he can't fit in us. So you don't have to do things because it's how they do them here. You do it them because it is your best training for your next position.
Yeah.
That's
a really good one. I hope somebody listening to this conversation is being inspired. And maybe it also remind you this is the Business Talks. It happens every Tuesday. And the beauty about this episode, we're going to have it in bits. So you'll have the remaining part. So I know you're going to listen up to here. And next week, I promise to also give the other part to you so that you listen to it. If you get inspired, you can inbox for Mr. Paul Kyaligonza and send him a 5,000. Yeah. Let's dive the conversation to now. We've gotten what we've understood how to identify our strength and use it in whatever we are doing. Let's now go into the applicability of this.
Okay.
To you, maybe you talk to somebody out there. You might not have done it, but I know you have more experience in this. How can we now? Maybe we're talking to me. I've identified that because I cannot stop working.
Yeah.
Now, how do I put it everywhere? Because different people have different strengths.
Yeah. Somebody
could be a good speaker.
Yeah.
How will they identify a space? Now we're going into the field. How will they identify a space? And like take advantage of.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's talk about that.
Well, just the way you struggled, like framing your question, it speaks to the reality of the world that we work in.
Yeah.
You get? Yeah. The reality is that there's no formula to this. Nobody will sit you down and say, hey, if you want to make it in finance, you must be good at math. I will give you an example. Me, I am the worst mathematician. You can't tell me things of it like 2 plus 2 times 6 and you expect an answer. I will just look at you. Because in as much as this is my field, I am not that brilliant mind and I'm an average mind. Yeah. That's why I will have an adding machine next to me. I know my weakness and I will drop it in and give you an answer. Okay? I'll use an example of my country director. he is blessed with the ability to express himself. You will give him any form of numbers, and you expect him to, and he's supposed to present it to the country overall bosses, the group's CEO. He will find a way of packaging it, and he will sell it. He will just come back to you and say, hey Paul, I packaged this, but we have a challenge here, we need to align better. You get? So how you get to know your strength, it comes from how many times have you done this particular thing and you have had success in it. If you notice, there's a particular thing that once in a while someone commends it, that means that is probably where you have an advantage. You get? So start identifying those aspects that you have an advantage at. Like even your parents could say, that means even your parents could see, oh, my kid is a peacemaker in the family. That means you have an edge on that. Apply it in your workspace. If conflict resolution is your strength, apply it. It will take you a step. All of us will be able to do the averages of every responsibility, but you stand out advanced. Some people are very good at presenting themselves. They will sit and explain. I used to have a friend who would tell me interviews, the written ones, I will fail. They make a mistake and call me to a boardroom. And that was his strength. The moment he gets to the boardroom, he will convince them to hire him. It's the deliverables that were a challenge to him. He would always be out of jobs and like, what is happening? Like, boss, as I told you, I can express myself, but I'm not very good at doing the deliverables. Me in particular, I am very good at sitting down here and giving you results, but talking about them is a challenge. I'm learning it. Over time, I've noticed I have nothing to do. I have to learn to speak to what
to defend them.
So getting back to your question in itself, it starts the very first day. You make, it's a mindset thing. You make up your mind, say, I need to do better by myself. Then you'll identify a position. You'll identify an ability in you that will introduce you to. It's not about your education. It's not about your training. It's about, you will only use that advantage that you have over people with your training. I was talking to a friend. He has graduated from university. He's an accountant. And he's telling me, boss, how do I break through? And I'm like, have you considered just walking into an auditing firm and say, hey, I am a graduate. I need training. I don't care if you give me nothing. I just need to be trained. I am here to work. He looked at me with a face and he didn't look very convinced. And I'm telling him, what are you missing? After all, even if you don't have a job, you don't earn anything. So at least go and be in someone's office and don't earn anything, but you're learning something. Next time we are hiring accountants, you'll have an edge because you have an experience. We will not know that you are not earning anything. We will be like, okay. And I told him, don't do it so hard, because his mindset was like, how will I join Ernst and Young like that? I can't just walk into their offices. I told him, no, use Kansanga Gaba Road. There are over 15 audit firms, auditing firms on this road. You just need to find out. They are renting some small offices, like 3 accountants in there, and they want to exploit people like you, but in return they'll give you the experience. That will introduce you to the world. Because every time, and I will be very frank, every time I'm shortlisting, I'm given an opportunity to shortlist for accountants. These are the criteria. All of you definitely would write in because you have qualifications. I don't expect anybody to write in without a qualification. Good. Then I will think about the university that has written in. I will not mention universities, but there are those that we know have strength in this field that will stand you out. Thank you. Then we'll look at who has CPA. All of you have. Good. Then we'll look at who has some level of experience. And even in the experience, we'll define which type of experience. When we see someone coming from government, I can promise you we put it aside. Because the attitude, just like you mentioned, we know that attitude. When we see anyone with auditing, accounting, auditing experience, that is a plus. It doesn't matter whether he's being paid or not. The fact that he's in a structure where there are timelines, where there are deliverables on we believe you will suit in easily here. When we see manufacturing, we say, okay. Then thirdly, when we see service industry, we say, okay, this one's also, they are not so that had committed, but at least these first two will stand out. You get what I'm saying? So, like I said, it's a mindset. You wake up and say, I went to university. I have a population degree. Census comes once in 10 years. There's possibility nobody will give you a job. But when I was growing up, my mom used to own a hairdressing salon somewhere, and I would help. Think about it. Start it. You don't need so much to rent that. In fact, when you partner with your friends, before you even partner for contributing to introduction, a few friends can stand with you in such an provided you sell it right. Come to Paul and say, hey Paul, I want to open up a salon. I'm thinking I'm good at it. It doesn't matter even if you're not good at it. I am thinking of bringing in 3 girls. You're going to even create jobs for 3 people who are trained in the hairdressing field. Okay, but you're selling the idea to me. I am having 3 people come through. My clientele is the church. Most of the girls are my friends. I am going to convince all of them to join me, to come for their hairstyles with me. So I'm thinking, if you could help me procure these 2 hair dryers, these 2 braid, it will really sit in, make more meaning than you walking to me and say, hey Paul, it will literally make, I will easily buy in. I might not buy into it, but if you talk to 50 of us in church, all people in your cycles, 50, I can promise you one will buy into that idea. And I can promise you, you will not even hold anybody's head to plait hair. You will start as a manager because you went to university with your population degree. You have 3 people on your payroll, you're managing them. The rest will work itself out. It's how you have thought about it and what you want to do. Tapping into what you already know.
This is really interesting. Maybe unless you have something specific you want to bring on table before we can conclude this.
You see, today is amazing. I was listening to, I told you before we got into this podcast, I was listening in to a podcast of a Kenyan guy who for some reason I thought I was listening into an entrepreneur's podcast. He was talking about how he started his business from scratch, how he went under debt and he owed almost $1 million, how he lost a business, and then how he set up a new business that is all over East Africa. Though for him, he left it, he resigned afterwards after setting it up. It was amazing to even know he's a pastor of a big church in Kenya. For me, I thought I was, but I noticed in his conversation was relying on the Bible. He actually, in his own words, said the best guideline that you might need to run a business is the Bible. Like, what type of entrepreneur is this one? I didn't know he was a pastor in the end. I found out after the podcast had ended. And in one particular event, he mentioned his interface when he was losing his first company. He's speaking about losing, but proudly speaking about it. He owed over $1 million between suppliers and employees and shareholders. But the leading supplier that he owed was his landlord, over $400,000. That's what he owed, because he thought his business was going to merger, took up space and hired a lot of people. Then Kenya went into that post-election violence that brought everything down. He was mentioning a particular person who, in the Kenyan framework, it's like mentioning the Sudiro of Uganda in real estate. Yeah. So he says he sought for an appointment with him. I owe you money, but I'm asking for an appointment. And he walks into his office and tells him, I owe you 400,000, but I'm not going to pay it to you. We need to find a solution to this. I don't have 400,000. This is what I had in plan. This is what failed. You need to find a way of solving this because I am not going to pay it to you. I don't have it. And he left. He went there the first time, left when it had been cut into two. He came back the following time. He left when it had gone down to only 10 millions. He said that wasn't enough. He went in the third time and said, no, even 10 million I will not give you. He paid him 1.2 from 40 millions. But in the conversation, when they asked him, how did you even go to his office to convince him? He said, I had blind faith. The Bible is very clear. He says that when the lady who had a situation confronted Jesus, Jesus told him, this food is not meant for you. And she was like, even the dogs eat the breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
So he said that was his basis. That is what forced him to go back every day. Because this guy would look at him, because he says now they are very good friends because of what he did then. This guy would look at him and say, so you want me to just lose money like that? Like, yeah, you have to lose money because the business plan didn't work out. He's relying on the principles of the Bible to handle a situation that is physical.
Wow.
So when I had his podcast, I was like, really? We have the framework, we have the formulas here, we just need to stick to them.
Yeah.
These things are living, these things are practical. We only choose to think that they are history in nature, they worked then. But he mentioned the aspect of the Lord's Prayer when Jesus told them that when you're praying, among the things you shouldn't worry about are your food, clothing. Because he asked, 5 years back, what was that one piercing thing that you thought about and thought your life is ending? Probably it was your school fees. Do you still have that problem today? Did you die? It doesn't matter if you graduated after your colleagues had graduated. You later graduated. You're just worried for nothing. You're just putting yourself in a position of getting disease for nothing. So life can be worked on if you reference with the Word of God. These things you're gonna worry about, how will I get my job? Okay, honestly speaking, some of us also didn't know how to get jobs. We never knew. If at 12 I knew that football was my breakthrough to the corporate world, I would have stuck to it. If I knew it, I would have concentrated more to it than. But somehow I thought it was going to my career and getting a degree. And that's why I put a lot of. I'm not underwatering it down because without it I still will not go. But it in itself was not sufficient. You get what I'm saying? So you apply this word in your everyday life. One day at a time, it will sit in. You just need to interpret it in your life and say, hey, hold on. When he said, I will sit you with the high, I will bring you from down and sit you with the kings and priests, he really did not mean the Kabaka of Uganda, no. Because your brain will think that way. But we have one kingdom. How will I sit with this? No. The fact that you have an opportunity to sit with, let's say, Pastor Rock, you're already at that level. The fact that you have an opportunity to sit in a boardroom where people who have learned, who have better experiences with them, but are listening in to you, is you sit. I mean, where did you come from? Down there, you have not been there, but see where you are. On Vision Night, our Vision Sunday, I was telling people, me, my greatest miracle is the fact that I'm seated and I'm actually a signatory on a fund. When did that start? I don't care about the other things. When did that start? Okay, where was it even imprinted that there will be a church and Paul will be also a signatory on the fund? How? Okay, people say, you're friends to Pastor Edwin. Hold up. He has many friends.
Or you?
I mean, he has more friends than even me.
Yeah.
So somehow you'll find your fitting. God will make a way. It is not a lie when you hear things that God makes a way. He really makes a way.
Wow.
Do not worry about and amazingly, I also worry, even with this kind of. I also fall prey to it. The only difference is I wake up and say, hold up, you're not in charge. You do so little to where you're going. God does everything else. It does not mean sit back and relax. No. Step out there. He starts with that. You told me last time we were sharing about the fish and bread. The disciples were looking at it. Hey, the best solution here, these people should go. Let's go, then go out there and find their own food. And he's like, no.
Here is food.
And so, okay. Actually, the purpose of that fish and bread was, in its very nature, probably food for the disciples. I'm very sure whoever brought it up was like,
food for Pastor Edwin and Pastor
Jesus, we have some food for us.
Yeah.
This guy should go.
Yeah.
But look at what it turned into. So basically, to me, that's it.
We really have to take advantage of our strength. And sometimes we look at strength in terms of money. What we have in the hands in terms of money. Yet it's more what we have in terms of money. It's more of the experiences, the reason as to why God has written our stories and scripted them in a given way.
Yeah.
So if we forget the beginning of the whole story and we are focusing on what we are getting tomorrow, and we forget that God has drawn this table in a way that is interesting, then really we are going to lose it. Thank you so much, Mr. Paul.
You are welcome, uncle who has no kids.
Yeah, and to all our listeners, this has been really amazing. You can get this podcast next Tuesday. The special bit about this, we had it, the first episode we had it last week, and now this has been the second episode of the fourth episode.
You'll confuse us.
But this is the second part of the fourth episode. But thank you so much for listening.